Good afternoon, everybody. It's Bob Wilmouth, the President of Rocky Mountain College. I appreciate you taking time to look at to see this video message. First of all, I want to congratulate the graduating seniors this Saturday. I hope the rest of the class is going to have a fruitful finals. And then, of course, I welcome our new students that are coming in August. Our goal is to continue to keep you safe, but we want to get as close to normal as we can. I am sitting next to a Dr.Fred Khan, who has over 40 years of experience in infectious disease, and he has a message for you. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Khan.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
You
Appreciate being here. This has been a trying time, to say the least, for all of us. It's been predicted for some time, and we all thought we would see influenza as our pandemic, and along came coronavirus. Health and infectious disease experts have waited for a pandemic, but unfortunately, as we've seen, none of us were prepared for what has hit us over the last 1 to 2 years. So you folks are dealing with it directly, as I have in my medical practice. Just a few points in general about coronavirus, as you've all become aware. It is very contagious and easily spread. At onset, we thought that surface transmission was important, but it's really an airborne virus. Mike Osterholm from Minnesota, who's an expert in the field, who I highly recommend, he has a great podcast, talks about swapping air. That's why masks and distancing are so vitally important. In fact, they will be going forward. We know that masks protect not only you transmitting it to someone, but they're protective for you from getting it as well. The second point is that we're not going to be through this for a while. When you come back in the fall to school, we will be dealing with coronavirus for the next 1 to 5 years. The third point is the advances that have been made. We're seeing antivirals coming to the fore. The vaccine advances have been nothing short of miraculous, and I'll talk later about vaccine technology and how they work, why they work, and who they work for. Finally, as students, one of my messages to you is to think critically about what you read and hear. I don't think Facebook and social media is probably the best forum for accurate coronavirus information. If you look at sources like Johns Hopkins, the American Medical Association, and health ministries such as the State Department of Health in Montana or CDC, you will get more accurate information that you can make informed choices about what you want to do in dealing with coronavirus. Because frankly, there is a lot of misinformation out there. I deal with that literally every day in my practice, where people come in with questions about which vaccine to take, whether they want to take a vaccine, and how to deal with COVID. And my population of patients are elderly who often have chronic diseases. So it's vitally important that we all educate and follow the guidelines before us. Just a couple of points again about transmission. Airborne transmission is best prevented by 6-foot social distancing and mask use. Once you might unfortunately be diagnosed with coronavirus, you will obviously be asked to quarantine at home, stay away from people. The CDC guidelines have changed, started at 14 days and now we're down to 7. If you have a chronic medical disease, including in a college-age student, that puts you at somewhat higher risk for complications from COVID. So you would be in one of those target populations potentially to receive the vaccine. And I would stress that you obtain the vaccine, because in my experience, boy, people with chronic disease who get COVID have had long recoveries. The damage, where I see it, would be neurologic, respiratory, which is one of my other specialties, as well as this long COVID or the chronic fatigue and problem concentrating. So I don't think you want any part of that disease state if you do have a chronic underlying illness. But for most healthy college students, I think you could fairly ask the question, why should I vaccinate? What's in it for me? A couple of points. We know that in college-age individuals, adolescents, and through college and on up, asymptomatic infections are far higher than are symptomatic, meaning most people on a college campus who have had or will get COVID are relatively asymptomatic. What it also means, though, is that they can spread the virus to others who then do become symptomatic. And there, of course, have been a number of outbreaks in college campuses. There's recently been one in Michigan with one of the variants from the UK that has affected a number of students. And so if a college is unfortunate enough to have an outbreak, it really has significant consequences for classes continuing, sporting events, and being able to enjoy campus activities and be part of a campus college environment. So that's one of the reasons why you would consider taking a vaccine, because of the complications if an outbreak were to develop. The other point that I mentioned would be about the variants. Right now in Minnesota and even North Dakota, there are what's been termed a fourth wave of COVID. I understand Colorado is seeing the same with the UK variant, which is more contagious, probably not more lethal, but spreads more readily in individuals in a community and closed space. And so they're wrestling with this right now. There have been a number of schools in the Twin Cities and other parts of Minnesota that have had to curtail activities because of spread. I suspect it may only be a matter of time until that gets to Montana. It may already be here. So we may deal with a blip or an uptick in our cases here over the next few months from that variant. Not to say that we shouldn't ignore the South African variant, which looks more lethal. And there's a variant in Brazil and South America that is very, very scary, that spreads way more rapidly. The science behind this, just as a brief aside, is that the more coronavirus grows in a body, the more chance it has to mutate and develop a variant. And that's another good reason why you would consider taking a vaccine. We want to limit the number of infection, asymptomatic or severe infection, which limits the number of variants that would spread in a country or in a community. And back to the vaccine benefits, most of you are students and you may have parents who are my age, and when you take corona home to your folks who may not have been vaccinated, particularly if they have health conditions, you could put them at risk of serious COVID complications as well. So there are a number of good reasons why you would consider taking the vaccine. It can protect you, it can protect the broader community, and it can protect your family as well. Briefly, I would tell you that as of today, based on a New York Times report, there are at least 80 different vaccines in early trials. There are right now 23 different vaccines in what are called phase 3 or advanced human trials. And those are the trials where they're enrolling thousands of subjects to see if they're safe and effective. So the current 4, 5, or 6 that we have are not the end product of vaccine development over the next 1 to 2 years. There are going to be a lot more options for vaccines out there for all of us. So that's good news. Currently, the two main families of vaccines are the mRNA, the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine, which has been, most of us in Montana have taken those. Those are the mRNA or the new technology. And then the little bit older technologies, the AstraZeneca, Oxford, and the J&J vaccine. And those two have had some clinical trial problems because of rare issues with blood clotting. Right this week, the J&J is on hold because of rare blood clots. So you have to be aware of side effects, and each of you will balance the side effect profile to the benefit. But I will tell you, with other vaccines coming in the next few months, there will be more options available, and probably at least as good from a safety profile. So I can say, though, that they're all highly effective. I took the Pfizer, and my wife had the Moderna, and we did have some mild achiness and fatigue, but boy, I was happy to get it because I felt protected, and particularly in a clinical medical practice, I've had a lot of exposure to COVID. And the data on the mRNA vaccines is stupendous, to say the least. It's over 94% effective in preventing disease. And if you look at experience, for example, in Israel, where there's been a wide vaccine campaign, it has cut the number of cases down to just a few hundred in a month from tens of thousands. And so it prevents spread of the virus in the community as well. So those vaccines do work. Obviously, there are side effects that we have to be cognizant of, but I think there are good reasons to take vaccine in the near term and long term. Will we be getting a booster? Perhaps, although no one knows that. We also don't know the duration of immunity from native COVID or vaccine for coronavirus. With the mutants, as you're all aware, there is concern about that immune response cross-reacting. There's some interesting work going on at Walter Reed right now with one virus that may prevent a lot of different coronavirus infections and may affect the mutants. But that's an open-ended question. We just don't know yet. So I could go on and on all afternoon, but I think I'll stop there and hopefully have addressed concerns that some of you may have had.
I appreciate everything you said, Dr. Khan. It's important to value expertise, and that's why we're here today. I do have a question, though. I didn't think I would, but I actually do. This pathway, will we ever get back to normal, in your opinion? And of course, you're a man of science, a person of science. I understand that. So there's a little bit of an art to this, I would imagine. With your expertise, do you think we will get back to normal?
I think it will take anywhere from 2 to 5 years to. I'm not sure we'll ever get back to going to a sporting event here at the gym where we don't think about it.
Right.
What I believe will happen is, as vaccines roll out, as we get ahead of this over the next 1 to 3 years, we can start to go about sporting events, go back to school. What we'll probably see, though, is little blips or hotspots of coronavirus around the country and around the world. But we have a world around us. You know, the developed nations have received most of the vaccines. If you look at Africa, the Middle East, and elsewhere, I mean, most of those populations are unvaccinated. So anybody coming to us, even right now, if you tried to get in from Brazil with that variant, boy, you would be putting a lot of our population at risk. So to get the world to an immune status will be many, many years. But even in the US, we've got 1 to 2 years to get enough people vaccinated. So to get to a level of herd immunity, what is it, 75 or 80% of people have to be immune, and we're not nearly to that point yet. So I think we'll be there in the US. I think we will continue to see this COVID pop up. It might show up in Glasgow, Montana, or Billings, or New York City, but those will be contained clusters of disease like we see with West Nile virus or other controllable viruses. I think we want to be able to control it, though.
Can we call on you when we need you?
Sure can.
I thank you.
You bet. My pleasure.
Nothing's changed since 15 months ago when this started. Your safety, your welfare is the most important thing. Have a great summer. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.